Hi, everybody. This is Deanna Kosaraju, and I'm the founder of Global Tech Women. I want to welcome you to Voices 2015. And right now, we are in the Asia Pacific time zones. We are going to be online and live for the next 19 hours, where we are going to be featuring cool women in technology. We will be featuring issues of a regional and national and international level. And also, we will be having some great professional development towards the end of this 19-hour jaunt through time zones. So I hope that you will watch these recordings. I hope you will attend them live. And I hope that you will invite your friends and colleagues to be part of Voices 2015. So with that, I would like to introduce our next session and our next speaker. So this is optimal execution of MapReduce jobs in the cloud with Anshul Agrawal. And she is going to take us through MapReduce. I'm very interested in this topic, so I can't wait to hear more about it. A couple of things you need to know. We have a PowerPoint deck here, so I'm going to launch this in a minute, and then you need to follow along with the speaker and make sure that you stay on the same page she is. So she'll let you know what slide number she's on, and we can follow along with her. So with that, I'm going to hand it over and launch your deck. So here you go.
Thank you, Dina, so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Anshul from India. Thanks a lot for being here. Much appreciated. First of all, I'd like to wish all of you guys a wonderful International Women's Day. It's been a wonderful week, a lot of activities going on, and this is one of the main active features that Global Tech Women has presented. It's a great platform for women to showcase their work. I've seen a lot of different women from different parts of the world putting together various aspects of their work and the technical skills, and I think it's a really nice platform to showcase your work, especially for women in technology. Seen a lot of engagement. So thank you so much for that. Super excited. So before I begin, I'd like to give a brief introduction about myself. Hi, I'm Anshul Agarwal, born and brought up in Delhi, India. So I'm a recent graduate. I've done my bachelor's in computer sciences, and currently I'm working with Cisco Systems as a software engineer. So I currently am working on the WAN optimization technology. But what I'm here to talk about is something really, really different and something that I picked up during my graduation. This is the MapReduce framework, right? So let's dive in, shall we? So what exactly is MapReduce framework? Is it a programming language? Is it an application? Also Hadoop. You get to see or hear Hadoop whenever there is a mention of MapReduce jobs, there is a mention of Hadoop. What is it Hadoop? Weird name though, right? And then there's a really weird looking yellow icon next to it. And like, okay, what is this? A funny looking icon, a really weird name, and which actually has no meaning. And how does cloud fit into this? So this is all what we are about to talk here. So the statement of objective of this presentation is basically to give you a brief understanding of the MapReduce framework, how Hadoop fits into the MapReduce framework, the implementations, and how all of this is at par with the cloud trend that is going on right now. So what I want you to take away from the slides are the MapReduce framework, Hadoop, and optimization required in MapReduce framework in today's technology. So the audience I am assuming is watching this podcast is any person with a basic level of technology. You do not require any prior knowledge of programming or cloud computing or MapReduce of Hadoop framework. I will step by step guide you through the entire framework, and even if you're not from a technical background, I will make sure that you have an understanding at the end of the presentation what exactly is going on, how you guys are affected from it, and what you can do with the MapReduce framework, right? So let me briefly introduce the agenda. Moving on to slide 2. So here I'm talking about cloud computing, MapReduce, and Hadoop. So I'm going to start the presentation with a brief introduction about MapReduce, what it is, and what is cloud, what is Hadoop. So there are three major points. There's the introduction, then after that we're going to move into the architecture and technicalities of the MapReduce framework and the Hadoop implementation. The third part is the optimizations required in the MapReduce framework. These are the three broad aspects I'm going to be covering in about 30 to 35 minutes. At the end, we can have a quick Q&A session if you guys want. Right? So let's begin. Moving on to slide 3. What exactly is a MapReduce job? To understand that, you need to understand the need that led to the evolution of a MapReduce framework. As we know, in today's world, there are a huge number of applications. A number of web application, internet, websites, and every day petabytes of data is generated and stored, and you have no actual means of processing this data, right? With the advent of cheap storage technology and huge processing capabilities, we have been equipped with the capability to actually process this data. And data analytics is one of the main trends that we are seeing due to this huge amount of data that is being collected, right? Data analytics is a really emerging field, and you can see it being implemented in each and every part of the technical field we require. There's astronomy, there's social networking, there's bioinformatics. Every part is deploying data analytics. So this is where the large data processing is required. Also, the cloud trend is really supporting large data processing. So cloud has seen a 5 times growth than the normal IT sector in the past year, which is huge. And cloud is the perfect runtime environment you'll need for processing large data processing jobs, because it provides you with computation that is huge, a huge resource pool, and a highly scalable solution along with fault tolerance. So all of this really support the data and the data processing that is required. So what was required? So we had the cloud, we had the need for data analytics, and we had this huge amount of data being stored in large clusters of hard drive. What we needed was a special framework, a computation framework to actually process this data efficiently. And that is where the MapReduce job comes into play, right? So MapReduce is basically a programming model. Okay, it's a programming model that lets the user specify his computation in terms of a map and a reduce function, right? And after you've specified a map and reduce function, the runtime environment will automatically take care of all the underlying jobs of scheduling, of assignment, of load balancing, of virtualization. Each and every part of the housekeeping job will be taken care by the framework itself. What you need to do is just specify your computation as a map and a reduce framework, right? Cool. So this is what MapReduce framework is. It is simply a data parallel programming model designed by Google, and it is being used by a lot of companies these days. So moving on. Why MapReduce optimization? So we are here talking about in a screencast about MapReduce framework and Hadoop. So why exactly is this required? This is required because the MapReduce programming paradigm lends itself really well to the data-intensive jobs because of its capability to leverage huge amount of cluster of computation and parallelly process a large amount of data. So, for example, for activities like web crawling and web indexing, MapReduce framework really helps you because it can automatically scale in or out and make sure that your requirement of time and efficiency is the first priority to actually execute the data. Now, researchers have shown that even though MapReduce has evolved a lot over the past 4 or 5 years, there are still a lot of fine-tunings that will be required in the MapReduce framework. MapReduce has over 180 configurations, and right now what we are using are most of the default configurations that were provided during the conception. So now it's time to actually move into fine-tuning and optimizing the MapReduce framework. What we need to basically know in optimization of MapReduce framework is that there are three main bottlenecks: the CPU, the network, and the disk. These are the three main resources that are provided by a cluster or a cloud, and the three main bottlenecks while you'll be running a MapReduce jobs. So you need to come up with a computation specification that will make sure that these bottlenecks are taken care of. There is no deadlock or no skew partitioning. So moving on, moving on to slide 5. This is basically the outline of the presentation and how it will go. First of all, we'll be talking about cloud computing and how it is related to MapReduce framework. Next, I'll be explaining you the MapReduce architecture. I give you a better understanding of the MapReduce framework by giving you an example. After that, we will be working towards the Hadoop, which is the implementation, the current and the most popular implementation for MapReduce framework. And the last part, we'll be talking about tuning the MapReduce framework. How about we can go about fine-tuning and optimizing the CPU, the disk and network, and making sure that we are getting the best out of what we are paying and putting in. Right. So moving on to slide 6 of the session. What exactly is a cloud and how does cloud come into a MapReduce framework and large data processing? So let me start by defining a cloud. A cloud basically is a large scale distributed computing environment wherein you're provided with a huge resource pool, and that resource pool can be a CPU, disk and network. It is provided to the user as a utility on a pay-as-you-go model. So you can dynamically commission and decommission your resources and on the go run jobs, right? So this is a really innovative and cool technology, I'd say, that's come up recently, and which supports all kind of parallel processing data. So it's often difficult to untangle MapReduce or other large data set processing jobs with cloud, with the broader discourse of cloud, mainly because the main features that the cloud computing and the cloud system provides and what they boast of are the basic requirements that these MapReduce and large data processing jobs need. So you need a capability to scale out, not just scale up, but scale out and dynamically get resources on runtime. You need a high fault tolerance. You need a seamless execution so that the user is unaware of what's going on underground. For him, it should be as if he's running the system on his local machine, right? So all of this, these resources of rapid elasticity, a huge resource pool that is available on demand and in a measured quantity so that you can use a pay-as-you-go model, a broad network, and this huge resource pool. All of this is being able to provide by the cloud computing framework. And that is why cloud computing goes hand in hand with the MapReduce and the Hadoop framework. And companies these days mostly deploy cloud implementation of this framework rather than developing our own cluster. There are a few companies that are really advanced in networking, and due to security and other reasons that consolidation maybe want to deploy this on a private cluster, but the general opinion is usually implementation of cloud computing on a cloud. So moving on to the next slide, that is 7 of 49, cloud computing services. Now this is briefly I'm going to tell about the cloud. The cloud is the current business trends and the evolution of data centers from a centralized to a distributed and now to a virtual has led everything to be moved to a cloud. So this is really good because you get to explore a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of services provided by cloud computing. So there is the bottommost, that is infrastructure as a service, where the resource pool is provided to a user as it is, and the user can, according to his own needs, provision the resources and use it. Then there is the topmost, that is software as a service. And software as a service is where you get to deploy and run your software in actual runtime in the cloud, and all the housekeeping tasks and everything is taken care by the cloud itself. All you need to do is copy an image of the application you want to run on the cloud, and the users can directly log into the cloud and use the application. The third and the service that we are interested in is the platform as a service. Now here, the cloud is basically used as a platform provider where you are provided with the virtual machines and you can provisioning is automatically done, but you can use the resources and the virtual machines according to your own needs. So you can make a cluster and you can deploy your whatever application you really want to use, and the internal abstractions of the scheduling, virtualization, load balancing, automatic failure handling, everything is taken care by the cloud. So it is basically a platform that is provided to the cloud. And this is where the MapReduce framework uses cloud. So MapReduce framework uses the platform as a service part of the cloud, where the virtual machines are commissioned and assigned the map and the reduced task, and the entire control is done by the client. So moving on, let's move on to the second part of the slide, that is the MapReduce architecture. So the MapReduce architecture, what we really want from it and what exactly is it. Moving on, I am now on the slide 10 of 49. Right. So MapReduce framework, as I told you, MapReduce framework basically evolved because there was a need of large data processing. So in early times also, and by earlier, I don't really mean like 10, 20 years, even about 2, 3 years ago, and in some fields till now, data processing is basically done through traditional database systems. And the most popular one among these is the Relational Database System, or the RDBMS. So what the constraints of the relational database system is that you require the data to be structured in the form of a tuple or a cell and in relations. And the second thing that you need in a traditional database system is that the most database systems cannot actually handle huge amounts of data. Now, the amount of data we're talking about here right now are petabytes and petabytes of data that is generated every day. It's really, really difficult to actually store these data into the relational database because those databases normally require normalization, and that will really, really slow down the processing. Also, it is often not possible to classify and structure this generated data into relations and tuples and cells. So that is where the MapReduce framework comes into play. So it was basically developed by Google because of the huge problem it faced in its web crawling and web indexing. So as you know, Google is the popular search engine that we use, and every day huge amount of data is generated. Now Google requires to crawl through each and every article or page that is put up every day, rank the words, make a word count, and actually develop a page rank so that it can manipulate the search results for you better. This required a large data processing that they were not being able to do by a traditional relational database system. So that's why we came up with MapReduce. And then in 2004, they formally presented the MapReduce framework in the seminal paper, Simplified Data Processing of Large Clusters. So the actual timeline of the development of MapReduce framework is arguable, but the most common and the most cited one is this paper presented by Jeffrey Dean and Sanjay Ghemawat in 2004. After that, it's been picked up by a lot of organizations and a lot of people working in this field, especially data processing, and it has seen a lot of evolution over the last few years. One such person was Doug Cutling, who took up MapReduce framework to actually implement it in his then developing open source search engine called Nudge. I'm not sure what happened to Nudge, but what really came out of Nudge was the most popular implementation of the MapReduce framework called the Hadoop system. So Hadoop system is the implementation of MapReduce job. It is basically a standalone system that lets you specify the map and the reduce function, and everything else is taken by the Hadoop system itself. So all the virtualization, the provisioning of the virtual systems, copying the data, copying the processes, and making sure there is enough bandwidth, enough memory, everything is taken care by the Hadoop system, right? Moving on to the next slide, that is 11 of 49. So what the paper basically told you was a programming model. There was a workflow with an example of a word count and sorting to how exactly show you how you can develop a MapReduce job in a simple way. There was an execution overview, the master node and data structures. It explained you how to move data, how to move processing. And this was really, really helpful because it was picked up by a lot and lot of organizations and is now being implemented in each and every nook and corner where you see, right? So, for example, moving to slide 12 of 49, if you see there's a Facebook lexicon. So this is basically a tool used by Facebook to see what's trending. So if you go onto the right side of your Facebook page, you actually see a trending tab. You can see what is trending and what is not. So how does Facebook calculate that? So it goes through all your posts, all your statuses and checks what exactly are the words that people are using. So there's a word count, there's a sorting, there's everything. And with that, Facebook comes up with a lexicon. So as you can see, there is a spike in the words party, tonight, in October 1 and October 1. And based on that, it uses a graph search and everything actually come up with all your suggestions and ads that you see on your Facebook page. So MapReduce, Facebook is one of the major users of MapReduce actually. So what else is it used for? Moving to slide 13, you can see that MapReduce is being used by almost every huge company. In the last year has been really, really good for MapReduce. There has been a five-fold increase in the usage. Most major companies like Netflix, NetApp, EMC Square, etc. have started providing support for MapReduce framework. So, as you know, Google is the major user and the developer of MapReduce framework. It uses MapReduce for everything from web indexing, web crawling, article cleaning, click analysis, search analysis. Then there is Yahoo, who was a major contributor of Hadoop, the implementation system. And this has also been using implementation Hadoop and MapReduce for web map and spam detection. And MapReduce also started from basic processing tasks such as counting words and sorting or indexing, filtering, etc. But now it has seen a lot of evolution and is being deployed in major complex problems such as there's graph coloring, there's spam detection, iterative message passing, then you have joins and etc. Networks, stats, simulations, everything is starting to use MapReduce, and this is really, really good, right? Okay, so moving on to slide 14. Slide 14. So here what I'm briefly discussing is what is the design pattern of a MapReduce framework. Before we go into how to actually code it and how to write a MapReduce job, you would want to know what Google specified and what other people are using. What are the assumptions that is there in a MapReduce framework? So MapReduce is a computing paradigm for processing data that resides on hundreds and hundreds of computers. This is the first assumption of a MapReduce, and this is the first deviation from the actual or the traditional computing. So in a normal tradition, you are usually running your entire computing on a single processor. So there are not a lot of things that you need to take care which come into play in a MapReduce framework. The distributed system comes into play, right? And at first glance, you might not realize it, but MapReduce framework MapReduce is not an application that you can just put in your code and run it. It's not an ID, and it's also not just it's not a coding language also that you'll have to code and MapReduce into it. What it is a framework. It provides you certain steps as to what you need to do to make the job, turn the job into a map and a reduce function. And then once you've done that, then everything else will be taken care by the MapReduce itself. So all you need to do is specify your computation in a map and reduce framework. Let me stress on this, it's a framework, not a coding language or an application which often people confuse it with. So the next point, this being a framework makes it a lot of things easier and harder at the same time. So easier and harder because it provides you only the steps. What you need to do is just follow the steps, and once that's done, you're set. Everything else is taken care. But this is also kind of difficult because each and every problem cannot actually be specified as a map or reduce job. Traditionally, most of the jobs are sequential, but MapReduce job is highly parallelizable, and the map and reduce functions run in parallel itself. So breaking a problem into a map and a reduce function is a little bit tricky, right? So it's something like recursion, like learning recursion. When you start, it's really difficult to actually visualize your problem as a part of a sub problems and base down to a basic solution and then sum up the sub problems to actually come up with a solution to the main problem. But just like in recursion, once you figure out the recursion, you actually come up with a really, really elegant and efficient solution to the problem, right? So that is how MapReduce is. It's easier and harder at the same time, just like recursion. Okay, so one more thing that we need to take care in MapReduce job is the intercluster utilization. So as I said, it will be a distributed system, so there'll be a trade-off between just running making sure that there's a trade-off. You just have to make sure that the map and reduce jobs are there and everything is also taken by the MapReduce job. But there is a distributed system, so there may be some performance degradation. So there's a trade-off between them. How much do you want to work and how much can you allow degradation of the performance, right? So this was published, also the last point in the slide as says, this was actually published without an actual implementation by Google. So it was left to the coder society and the coder community to actually come up with implementations, and they have a lot of them. So there is one called Hadoop, which that is the standalone implementation, and apart from that, it is developed as a part of a major subsystems also as Hive and MongoDB, etc. So moving on to slide 15 of the MapReduce terminology. So here I'm basically going to tell you exactly how and what are the MapReduce basic technologies, terminologies that are used. So if someone is talking MapReduce to you, if you know these technologies, even if you not get the not get the basics or the coding of the part of it, you'll actually get to see how exactly it's working and what is going on. So the basic unit of MapReduce is a job, right? Job is the problem at hand that you need to solve. So a job is submitted by a client and to the MapReduce framework. The job comprises of the input data, the output directory that will be required, and the MapReduce task. The task is another terminology that is really, really used in the MapReduce framework. Task is basically the unit of process that will be given to a node. So there'll be a job, and a job will be divided into n number of tasks depending upon the size of the cluster that we have. And then what the process that each node on the cluster is running is called a task, right? So for a job and for a task, we have the mapping job tracker and a task tracker. So a job starts by input. So the input is split up into what is called splits. So this is technology. This is a terminology called splits. This is done by the job itself during job initialization. And once the splits are generated, there is a data locality. So the cluster, the node in the cluster where the data is residing, the process will be moved to that node. So MapReduce uses the concept of move process, not data. So the data will be split up into the HDFS system, that is the Hadoop distributed file system. And once it is distributed, the node will be working on each and every the split and mapping using the map function. This is the map function. This is where you specify your mapping. After the mapping is done, there is a sort and shuffle. So basically, the map part of the job will give you a key pair output. Now, a key pair output is the basis of MapReduce framework. What you'll require, I'll explain in the word count problem ahead how the key pair values work. So the key pair values are generated. Now these are sorted and shuffled so that every same key lands up in the same in a contiguous memory and is sequentially processed. Now these keys are then picked up by the reduced part of the job, which is again specified by the user, and the reduced functionality takes place. After the reduced job has been done, the data is written to the output, right? So I think there were a lot of jargons: jobs, tasks, task tracker, job tracker, data locality. So these were the main terminologies used. So let me move to an example to give you a better understanding of the problem. So right now I'm on slide 17. So word count. Now word count is called the hello world of MapReduce world. This is because like every language you learn, the first program you run is the hello world, right? So word count is the first program you run in the MapReduce job. As everyone of you may know, word count is a simple problem, right? You're given an article or a paragraph, and what you need to do is come up with the occurrence of every word and the frequency of occurrence of every word, right? So the input is given to the job. There is a mapper function, there is a reducer function. The mapper function is to process the data and give you the frequency at the end of the job. So at the end of the slide, if you see, you can see the actually how exactly it is run. It's Hadoop, and then you are given the jar files for that. The word count, now this is the class that is given. Word count, Amazon method or text, this is the input, and the last is the output, right? So moving on, if you can see, you'll see that this is the basic workflow of a MapReduce job of word count. You can see there is input data. Now the input data is being split up into these three hemispheres you see, right? And after that, the map function works on it to give you a word comma word count pair. And after that, this is actually merged and sorted to give you the final sum of the frequencies, and at the end you get the final result. If you see the slide 19, you can actually see this happening in the process. So there is a paragraph that is split. Every sentence is split here, and you can get so there's apple, orange, mango, everything. So there's 4 sentences that are split into 4 MapReduce jobs, and map key pair value splitting is there. So for the first sentence, apple, orange, mango. So the key pair value apple comma 1, orange comma 1, mango comma 1 is generated. Now for every sentence these key pair values are generated. There is a sort and shuffle that actually places all the apple in one, all the grapes in one, all the mangoes on. So the same keys are placed in in a sequential order. These are then picked up by the reduce function, which is basically a summation. So it will be checked for apple how many occurrences were there. So there are 4 key pair values, so it sets the frequency to 4. And at the end, all of these reduced pairs are copied to a single output file where you can see, so there is an occurrence of apple of 4, grapes of 1, mango of 2, and so on. Right? So I guess this gives you an understanding of the basic word count problem. So moving on, I'll briefly explain the MapReduce architecture, how it exactly works. So as I told you, there was a client that will be submitting the job. Then there will be a job tracker that will be taking care of the job part of the MapReduce job. Then these jobs will be divided into what we call tasks, and for every task we have a task manager. And then there is the data processing a database that we're using, that's called the HDFS or the Hadoop Distributed File System. We'll go into the details of HDFS later on in the slide. Okay, so this is the basic anatomy of a MapReduce job. The job starts basically with the job submission. So the client will be submitting a job. It will be specifying the inputs, the outputs, it will be specifying the splits, and it will be copying the entire input data to the HDFS. So basically, the major job tracker is not actually gonna store any amount or any type of actual data. All that's stored in the job tracker is the metadata about the tasks running, the data on the task, and the processes on the task, right? So next is the job initialization, where you'll have the object set up. There'll be a job setup, job cleanup, tasks will be scheduled. After that, the task will be assigned to be a map task or reduce task. Once that is done, then you'll be having a task execution. Okay. After that, you take care of the progress and the reports to the various logs that are there. And then once the job is completed, the client is woken up and the results are given, right? So I guess you can see from the slides, there is a client that is given the task to the job tracker, and the job tracker submits to the job task tracker, which has which is a child node basically, which has all the tasks locally data locally stored on it and can run the task. Moving on to slide 23, this is the basic classes that I've specified that are used in the coding part. So now we're getting into the technicality of the MapReduce. What is used? So basically, there'll be a configuration class, and which will specify all the configurations. So there'll be a network configuration of your cluster. It can be your local system, or it can be a local cluster, or something that is situated away. So you need to specify the address, the IPs, the ports, and this is all specified in the configuration API. So this is a configuration class for that. Then there are generic option tools, and tool runners. These are also classes that are helpful in parsing data and users reading inputs, reading records, and writing the output in a specific way. There's a flow to developing a MapReduce framework. First of all, what you'll do is you'll specify the configuration, then you'll read data with the help of these tools and tool runners. After that, you'll write a unit test to actually see what we want from a map in reduced jobs. So this is where JUnit and Mockit are some classes that come up into the picture. Once that you'll use the IDE to test the driver. So a driver function is there, which is there in the next slide if you guys want to see. Slide 24. So there's a driver function, which is basically where the magic happens, right? This will tell you exactly how and where all of this is being done, the coding part of it. And once it's done, you launch the log, you unleash it on the cluster, and there are a lot of log classes, log support that you can use to make a detailed log of everything that's going on, and at the end you can get the results. As you can see on slide 24, you have the basic coding. You are setting a job to a new job. There's a job class, there's a configuration class. You specify the set mapper class, set combiner class, set reduce class. So this is the Java implementation of MapReduce. You, for every phase, be it shuffle, sort, map, reduce, there's a specific class that supports a lot of features in the framework. So this is, if you see slide 25, this is actually the configuration. So here, if you see line 4, you can see the master node and its port. So similarly, downstairs you can see the directory, Hadoop directory where you want the output and everything. So every such thing is specified in the configuration file. So this was basically cloud MapReduce and the basic architecture of MapReduce. I'm sorry, design, a little bit of coding, and the basic understanding of a word count problem. I think it's already 40 minutes I've been talking. Oh my god. So I guess we can move on. Let's skip the Q&A and we can move on to the last part, second last part, that is the Hadoop framework. So Hadoop is the Java implementation of MapReduce framework. If you I'm right now on slide 28. So you have huge amount of clusters, and Hadoop is what basically is going to control this cluster, right? This might be I'm going to stick to the basic and the abstract concept of the Hadoop, and I'm not going to go into the detailed Java implementation of how actually it's gonna take care of everything, right? So moving on to slide 29 of 49. This is one really interesting quote I read from GeoSuper. In pioneer days, they used oxens for heavy pulling, and when one ox couldn't budge a log, they didn't try to grow a larger ox. We shouldn't try for a bigger computer, but for more computers. And this is what exactly Hadoop is all about. Unleashing your problem on a huge cluster rather than making one computer with large computer capabilities. You are using an n number of computers with an average computing capability to actually solve the problem, right? So why Hadoop and why not a traditional database system? So the main points I'd like to do is, the first thing is that Hadoop can support the job concept of a MapReduce job, right? Traditional databases have a concept of transactions and asset properties, but no such things are there in MapReduce framework. What is there are jobs and tasks, and Hadoop is able to abstract and run this concept. So that is why Hadoop is a really popular solution for MapReduce framework, right? Also the data model. So in traditional computing, we usually move data to processing, to queries or tuples and everything. But here the processing is moved to the data. So the data is spread to the machines in advance, and applications are written on a higher level. Everything else is taken care by Hadoop itself, right? So the nodes rarely talk to each other. Okay, so this is also a major feature of Hadoop. Apart from that, it uses a cheap commodity. You do not actually need really expensive and advanced computing. A normal average cluster is perfectly fine because you have a really high and efficient fault tolerance. So in a cloud, a normal commodity, in a cheap commodity, you know that failure will be there. But Hadoop makes this assumption in advance and makes sure that the fault is seamless, completely seamless. And this is something that traditional databases were not able to provide. So that is why Hadoop came to the picture. Moving on to slide 31. What is Hadoop? So as I said, Hadoop is a software framework for distributed processing of large data sets and large clusters. So what do you mean by large data sets is this huge amount of data that has variety and velocity and volume, right? Three V's. Variety, it is unstructured, it is from different sources. Okay, velocity, it is already there when you start processing, and volume, it is in huge amount. And similarly, large cluster. Rather than using a really expensive single computing environment, you're using a large number of cheaper commodities. Okay. So now Hadoop is also an open source implementation that has been developed by Yahoo and Apache. So Hadoop has a HDFS, Hadoop Distributed File System, which is the main soul of Hadoop, which is storing and providing access to the data. Moving to slide 32 of Hadoop. What is Hadoop? So if you go to the basic architecture of Hadoop, as you can see, there is two parts. There is the MapReduce framework, and this is what we talked about in the past half an hour. What the execution engine, the MapReduce framework. Apart from that, the second most important thing in Hadoop is the distributed file system, that is HDFS, right? So if you can see in the diagram below, there is a MapReduce layer and there is a HDFS layer. So MapReduce, as we said, has a master node which is the job client, which comes the job client, so it has a job tracker. And then there's a slave node that has the tasks that are assigned to it and it has a task tracker. So underlying is a HDFS layer which has the concept of a name node and a data node. So just as a job and task, you have a task tracker and a job tracker. For a job, you have a name node, and for a task, you have a data node. So what are these? The name node is basically the node that will store all amount of your metadata, right? The data model of the Hadoop framework is that it will make sure that the data is already there in the system. The data node has all the data in it, has all the information on the job that is currently being run. What name node has is all the metadata. What task is being run on what node, what is the data it's running on, is the data replication complete, is the task up and running, is the cluster up and running. Everything, all the metadata is stored in the name node, and everything else is stored in the data node. The design principles, as we talked about, the basic reasons for evolution and what the design basic assumptions and principles of Hadoop are automatic parallelization and distribution. There is a really high fault tolerance, so you do not need to worry about anything. Everything is taken care by itself. It makes sure that the machines are allocated, then there is transfer of data and everything. The cleanup is there, there is load balancing, there's scheduling, everything is taken care by the design principle of Hadoop. Hardware specs, moving to slide 34. Memory, basically the data is divided into blocks of 64 MBs. Now this is a huge block size because the data we are handling is also really huge. We need to make sure that memory and RAM is enough to make run the map or the various tasks, as well as the overheads and bottlenecks of CPU, disks, and networks. Then there's total tasks. The total task is a fixed formula. It's 1.5 times the core of the processor. That is the total number of tasks assigned to a job. No RAID is required, no blade server is required, because everything is taken care by the Hadoop implementation itself. The replication part is taken care, so you don't need actually RAID technology or blade servers because they have the dedicated heartbeat concept there, so you don't require a blade server and everything. But because there is a lot of data transfer, you require a dedicated switch and dedicated 1 GB line. So moving to slide 35, who uses MapReduce and Hadoop? As I specified earlier, a lot of companies, especially Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, etc., are using MapReduce, and Hadoop is the most popular implementation for MapReduce used by these companies. Moving to slide 36, so this is a brief workflow of how exactly your job will run. Hadoop implementation will divide the application into small blocks of work. This is then HDFS, that is the Hadoop Distributed File System, is then replicates this data for reliability and places them into the cluster. The job tracker and the name node will then assign the tasks to the various task trackers and the data nodes on the cluster, and the processing will begin once the target of Hadoop job is to run the cluster in the order of thousands of nodes, like 10,000 of nodes, which is huge computing power. Moving to slide 37, so this is what I was talking about. This is the workflow. There's an application, there's a HDFC name node, and then there's a HDFC data node, and so data is passed. So if you can see, the HDFC name node has the entire file structure, which is the IP structure, and it will tell you which task, which cluster node has what data. Moving to slide 38, hardware assumptions. These are assumptions that are already taken care by Hadoop, and this is really good and the best feature of Hadoop, because since we are working in a distributed system, there are a lot of problems that will come up because of the distributed system. But the good quality of Hadoop is that it is already making assumptions about the distributed network and coming up with solutions. So it knows that hardware will fail. So it automatically assumes that, and it has a three place replication. So the data is replicated in 3 parts, minimal 3 parts, so that if anything fails, you can actually move data again. Then there are checksums. Then there's a concept of heartbeat. So a task, although working independently, will require you to make sure that send a heartbeat. There's a concept of heartbeat, which is basically the task node talking to the job tracker, the name node continuously, and will tell you, okay, I am ready for a job, I am running the job, or the job is completed, ending is up. So all of these are taken care, assumptions are taken care of Hadoop and implemented properly. So there's portability, and applications have a write once, read many access model. They have a large data set, so inherently it has a large block size, that is of 64 MB as specified. Apart from that, it is based on the move processing, not data concept. This is the underlying technology of Hadoop, which you should know. Move, process, not data. And this saves a lot of time actually. And this is the main reason it's highly efficient. So if you go to slide 39, you can see the complete overview. So this brings together the Hadoop file system as well as the MapReduce implementation. So you have a name node which has the name node daemon running on it, which will store the file directory, which will store everything from your the basic division of your work, basic division of your data. Then there's a job tracker that has initiated the job. It will split up this data and tell the name node, okay, send this data here, send this data there. Similarly, every slave node will have a task tracker daemon running on it, which will actually take care of the execution. Then there'll be a data node which will take care of the data. Okay, so there are a huge number of slave nodes, and they'll be controlled by the master node that will have the name node and the job tracker daemon running on it. Moving to slide 40, so this is the reliability part of the Hadoop distributed file system, how the replication actually takes place. So as I said, there is a minimum 3-phase replication of data, and that is what makes Hadoop so reliable. So the data is first moved to the task where you want to execute it. A second replication is made to a cluster on the same rack on a different node, and the third is made to a different rack itself. So there is 3 replications. So if the local data goes wrong or corrupts, you can always move data from the node on the local rack, and if nothing has worked, you can move the data from a separate rack, right? Data locality is a major feature of the MapReduce framework. Also, to make sure that the least data movement occurs, what exactly happens is data is already placed in the cluster node. MapReduce is given with MapReduce is run on the data, and then the intermediate result is actually not written in the HDFC but to a local memory, because we don't want all the feature values moving in and out. And since a reduced pair needs to work on the entire data, you don't really need data locality in the reduced job. Okay, so moving to the main properties of HDFC, large replication, failure, and fault tolerance, as we said on slide 41. So moving to slide 42, that is the last part. I'll spend about 5 minutes as a basically telling you how tuning is required on the MapReduce framework. So going to slide 43, these specifies the parameters that are required. So right now what I was talking about till now are the default configurations. So every of these configuration files, replication and everything, this has been there from the start, and it's been there for a long time. But now developers have started to see that we really need to tune these parameters also, and this tuning will have a lot of effect on the actual efficiency. So even if you change the number of mappers and reducers based on the job profile, you'll see that greatly increases the hardware utilization. And then there are a lot of intermediate steps, combiners and everything that you can put in. Shuffle, sort, these are the basic intermediate parts of the map and reduce job, which you can highly optimize. So what we've seen is that there's a lot of scope, and I think I have just penned down about 8 parameters that require tuning. But if you see, every aspect of MapReduce job is still developing, and you require a lot of performance tuning, and if done, it will give you a great result in efficiency, which is really good because in cloud you're using something as a pay-as-you-go model, right? So the higher the efficiency of the hardware, the higher the efficiency of the framework, the least time you'll have to spend on computation and the less the investment, which is good for everybody, I guess, right? Okay. So talking about slide 44, mapping workers to processors. So this also talks about how exactly the MapReduce master will take the local information of the file and accounts and attempt to schedule a mask. And then there will be replication. Failing replication, you'll move the data. These are basic concepts that are being used, scheduling, and then there's load balancing, and then there's replication of data, which are really, really efficient in itself right now, but there is scope, a lot of scope in improving these so as to improve the MapReduce framework. If you see slide 45, I am talking about task analysis. This is something the Google paper presented in 2004 mentions at the end of the very paper. So they have given an abstract without actually implementing the framework. So now we talk here about the map phase and reduce phase. And they say that the map and reduce phase should be much, much more than the number of workers so that you are able to process the data in a good way. So what I have been working on is this part, the number of maps and the number of users. Now what we need is that the number of tasks and number of users should be optimal. If there are a large number of tasks or users, you will not be able to provide resources efficiently. There will be a lot of resource contention if the number of users and mappers is high. On the other hand, if you see, a low number of mappers and users will realize a low resource utilization. So what we need is an optimal number of mappers and users. And right now, what we're using is a default configuration. So typically, Google says the number of mapper users should be about 2 lakhs, and the users should be 5,000, where we're using a 2,000 worker machine. So there are some default conventions that are being used. But you can see that there is a lot of scope of even efficiency increasing by just setting the mappers and the users based on the job profile. Okay, so moving to slide 46. So this is speculative execution. So this is one of the approaches that Hadoop has come up. So it's been there initially, but this is one of the ways to optimize. So what they do, they don't actually optimize, but to see if one of the tasks, be it a map task or a reduce task, is taking a lot of time, they will in parallel start the process again. So the task will be taking a lot of time because of some bottleneck or because it's stuck. So if this task is successful, then the secondary task spawn will no longer be needed and it will be killed. But if the second task is completed first, so the first task will be killed. So this is basically not actually optimizing it, but we are spawning a copy of the job itself if the job gets slow than what time it should take. Right? So this is one way. This is called a speculative execution. Similarly, there are a lot of techniques that we can use. We can have job profiling. We have a lot of classes provided by the MapReduce framework, and a lot of logs that are put in. There's the HDFC log, there's a MapReduce log, and there's a system log. So we can actually see the parameters, what the job is using, what the bottleneck is. Is it disk? Is it network? Is it input output? And based on that, we can make sure that we are providing the right number of mappers, right number of reducers, we're choosing the right amount of cluster size, and we are scheduling it properly and optimize the solution here. So the problem statement. So this is what I would like to conclude. The problem statement at hand is defining a resource provisioning framework for MapReduce jobs running specifically in cloud, keeping in mind the performance goals such as resource utilization, optimal numbers of mappers and reducers, improvement in execution time, and a highly scalable solution. Because that is what we're looking for. Large parallel data processing with a highly scalable and fault-tolerant solution. So I guess this is the basic principle that we're looking for. We have MapReduce for the large data processing. We have Hadoop, the basic Java implementation. And now what we need to do is put in our heads together and come up with a better solution to our problems using the MapReduce framework and the Hadoop implementation. So thank you so much. This is all I had to say. I think I've been blabbering about for 1 hour. Hope you find this interesting. And right now on slide 48, these are the references mentioned here. I hope this was a little enlightening. I would have loved to engage with you guys, but I don't think there's anyone. So I think, Dina, yeah, I'll be handing over to you.
I had my microphone off. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Your headset in?
Sorry. Yeah. I was not able to hear you, so I plugged it
Okay.
out. Yeah.
All right. So if no one, we have a listener, but if he doesn't have any questions, I guess we'll go ahead and close. I'm sure a lot of people will watch this recording. In fact, the previous session that we had just before yours has already been viewed 200 times.
That's
So
good.
I'm so I'm imagining a lot of people will be watching this recording. So thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
been a great talk, and I hope that you'll continue to be involved with Global Tech Women.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful opportunity to put my work forward. I
All
am
right.
looking forward to it. Okay.
All right. Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you.
Good night, everybody, and good morning, everybody.
Good morning in India. Thank you.